reduction in resting blood pressure. When a rugby player starts to exercise, their blood pressure will increase, and then when they've stopped exercising, it should return to their normal resting rate. It should return to their normal resting level after about a minute. The fitter someone is, the blood pressure will return quicker than people that are unfit, and that's just because that they're more used to the exercise on a regular basis, so their recovery time's quicker. This is better for a rugby player because they're less likely to get any heart-related illnesses because of regular exercise, so the heart's working regularly.
Good.
An example of a disease is coronary heart disease, I've written down. Increased aerobic fitness. Aerobic fitness is aerobic fitness is the fitness when doing an aerobic exercise, which a rugby player would need to keep going for an 80-minute game. And because aerobic fitness is any exercise that you need oxygen for as the energy. Your aerobic fitness will increase if you're doing regular aerobic training in the long term, just because the heart and the lungs will become more efficient, and they can get oxygen to where it needs to be quicker, and your recovery time will increase.
It'll decrease.
Yeah, sorry, it will decrease. The VO2 max is a way of measuring an athlete's aerobic endurance, and it would have to be carried out in a sports performance lab.
Yeah.
Where you basically run on a treadmill as hard as you can go, and it measures the amount of oxygen that they utilise until they can't go anymore. Decreased recovery time. Recovery time is obviously how long it takes you to recover. In this case, it's how long it takes your heart rate to recover and return to its normal resting heart rate after you've been exercising. Regular exercise will make the cardiac muscles, which is the heart muscle, stronger. So because it's stronger, the recovery time will be shorter. For example, in rugby, if you were chasing to run down a tackle, to make a tackle, you'd be tired after making a sprint, but you're going to need to do another something that's more high intensity quick after. You might have to try and make another tackle, so you want your heart rate to get back to close to the resting rate as possible, so you're able to do another high intensity after a short period. Okay, and now energy systems. Increased anaerobic and aerobic enzymes. Basically, the enzymes in your body, for example, your anaerobic enzymes, make anaerobic. Pardon?
My stomach's rumbling. Sorry, carry on.
Make anaerobic exercises such as an 100-meter race easier to do. So, with an increase in the enzymes, it makes less stress on the body easier for you to do. So, for example, in rugby, a sprint down the wing would be easier to do with more anaerobic enzymes. And same goes for aerobic enzymes. Any aerobic event or activity becomes easier to do. So, completing a rugby match would become easier to do. The body becomes more used to it.
Good.
And can work for longer and more efficiently. The fats used as energy stores increase. Yeah, fat is basically a main source of energy, and during a low intensity exercise, so an aerobic event or activity, when glycogen stores become when they run out, when glycogen stores run out, but you still need to keep going for a long period, fat can be used as the fuel to exercise. Trained athletes can use a greater amount of fat as a fuel because everyone's got fat in their body. But if you're a trained athlete, then your body's better at using that fat as the fuel compared to a non-athlete, which wouldn't be as good as using it, and they wouldn't be able to go for as long, basically.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions now just to see if you can confirm merit answers for me.
Okay.
You talked really well through all the systems and you gave some good examples of how in rugby they might need to train to improve this system or whatever.
Yeah.
Can you give me some specific examples of types of training that would benefit a rugby player's cardiovascular and respiratory system? What do they do in training, or how could their training be adapted to make them perform better with those two systems?
With which do the cardio
and respiratory. So how does their heart and lungs work more efficiently with exercise if you make modifications to what they do in training?
Well, the way to make your heart or your lungs more efficient is to basically work your heart and your lungs more. So you'd have to do activities that use them more. So for your lungs, you'd have to do an aerobic exercise rather than anaerobic.
Such as, give me some examples.
For example, circuit training would work aerobically and therefore help with your respiratory.
What would you have to do with the time of the stations if you're trying to improve their aerobic system on a circuit?
You'd have to increase the time on each station.
Good.
So that they'd be pushing it more to the limit, so to help with an increase, and maybe decrease the recovery time.
Good.
Between each of the stations as well.
Good.
Or you could add more stations maybe. So if you were doing 8 stations before, you could up it to 10 stations.
Yeah. And can you give any other examples of different kinds of training they could do to improve their systems?
They could do interval training to improve on the systems.
Yeah.
Which interval training is basically periods of rest followed by periods of high intensity. So, for example, running around a rugby pitch, they could do periods of walking, periods of jogging, and periods of sprinting. And
what else might they do for rugby players specifically who need to do things under a lot of pressure and things like that? What else might they do to adapt their training?
They could do weights training because obviously it's one of the most physical sports, so they're going to have to be strong to do it. So that could be a weights circuit, for example. You could do circuit training with different types of weights on each station, working different muscles.
Okay. Okay, good, well done.